When a man stops chasing and starts evolving, something shifts in the entire dynamic. It's not loud, dramatic, or emotional. It's quiet, it's internal. It's the kind of transformation that doesn't need to be announced because it's reflected in his posture, his energy, and the way he carries himself. The moment you stop trying to convince her of your worth is the moment you finally begin to understand it yourself. You no longer spend your nights overthinking what went wrong or replaying arguments in your head. You stop stalking her social media, stop comparing yourself to the men she talks to, and stop giving your emotional power away. Instead, you redirect all that energy into something far more valuable, becoming the man you were always meant to be. This is the point where growth begins, not because she left, but because losing her forced you to confront parts of yourself you had ignored for too long. You begin to notice how much time you wasted chasing someone who already made a decision. You recognize that no amount of calling, texting, or emotional conversations would ever change her mind. So you stop, not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Chasing becomes pointless. Trying to fix things becomes unnecessary, and suddenly, silence feels better than trying to force something that's already broken. This is the moment your detachment becomes powerful, because it's rooted in self-respect rather than manipulation. You stop doing things to get a reaction from her, and start doing things because they make you better. Your days become structured with purpose. The gym becomes therapy. Work becomes a mission. Hobbies you abandoned suddenly return to life. You start reading, learning, building, healing. You invest in friendships, ambitions, and long-term goals you kept postponing. For the first time in a long time, your life starts to feel like your asterisk life again, not something revolving around how she feels or what she thinks. You understand that becoming a stronger man isn't about proving anything to her. It's about reclaiming yourself. And while you aren't doing any of this for her, she eventually feels the shift. Women are incredibly intuitive. They can sense the moment your energy changes, the moment you stop chasing, stop worrying, stop trying to show her that you're still there. She feels a void she didn't expect. This doesn't mean she instantly returns, but she notices. She wonders why you're not reacting. She wonders why you're not trying anymore. She wonders why the man who once begged for her time is now simply living, improving, and becoming more self-assured by the day. That's when curiosity replaces comfort, because now you're not the predictable version of yourself she left behind. Your emotional discipline becomes your greatest strength. You're no longer triggered by her silence or her distance. You don't need closure from her because you created it for yourself. You don't look for reassurance because your growth becomes your reassurance. This change is subtle but powerful, and it's exactly what makes her question whether she underestimated you. When a man evolves, he becomes harder to replace, harder to forget, and harder to ignore. You become the man she never thought you would become, the man who no longer needs her validation to feel whole. This transformation isn't about revenge, it's about rebirth. You rise not because she left, but because letting go gave you space to grow. By the time she realizes the change, you're already standing in a version of yourself that's stronger, calmer, and more grounded than before. You're not chasing her anymore, you're chasing your potential, and that difference is what makes all the difference. Growth becomes undeniable when your actions speak louder than every promise you once made. A woman doesn't respond to long explanations, emotional speeches, or attempts to convince her that you've changed. She responds to what she sees asterisk. And when your behavior transforms, when your patterns shift, when your reactions evolve, she instantly recognizes that you're not the same man she walked away from. You no longer operate from insecurity or fear. You no longer try to keep her by overgiving, over-explaining, or over-committing. Instead, you start moving in a way that reflects maturity, stability, and emotional intelligence, things that can't be faked, forced, or rehearsed. A man's actions reveal who he is far more than his words. Anyone can say they've changed. Almost no one actually does the work to change. But when you start showing up for yourself consistently, quietly, and powerfully, the world around you starts to respond differently. You set boundaries without being aggressive, you communicate without begging, you step back when energy feels off. You no longer tolerate disrespect or inconsistency, not because you're trying to teach her a lesson, but because you've finally learned your own asterisk. This shift is magnetic because it's real. It's rooted in growth, not manipulation. You start to notice that things that used to trigger you no longer have the same effect. The late replies, the mixed signals, the emotional distance, none of it breaks you anymore. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of chasing, you evaluate. Instead of proving your worth, you embody it. That emotional control signals strength, and strength creates attraction. A woman may not admit it out loud, but she feels it deeply when a man learns to master his emotions instead of letting them control him. When she sees you responding calmly instead of emotionally, choosing peace over chaos and clarity over confusion, she can't help but notice the difference. As your actions evolve, you naturally develop higher standards for yourself and your relationships. You're no longer available for situations that drain you, conversations that weaken you, or connections that make you shrink. You operate from self-respect, and that energy creates a shift in how others treat you. People begin to value you more because you value yourself. And she feels it too, the distance, the confidence, the inner strength. She starts to realize she's no longer dealing with the man who once put her on a pedestal. You've stepped into your own power. What makes this even more impactful is that your growth isn't directed toward her. It's directed toward your purpose. You become more focused on your goals, more disciplined in your routines, more committed to your future. You invest in your physical health, mental clarity, financial progress, and personal development. These are the changes that can't be faked. They require consistency, effort, and time, and that's what makes them so powerful. When a man changes his life, women notice. Even if she doesn't say anything, even if she keeps her distance, even if she pretends not to care, she sees it. She sees the new boundaries, the confidence in your decisions, the peace in your silence, the strength in your presence. She sees a man who no longer clings, no longer begs, no longer waits, and that's when her perception shifts from certainty to curiosity. Your evolution forces her to reevaluate her decision, because now you're not the same man she left, you're a better one. You didn't just talk about change, you became the change, and in a world full of empty promises, consistent action becomes irresistible. When a man reaches the point where his peace matters more than her approval, everything about him changes quietly, steadily, and powerfully. You stop living in reaction to her moods, her silence, her choices, and her opinions. You stop allowing her responses to dictate your self-worth. Instead, you begin to protect your emotional world like it's sacred, because it finally feels sacred to you. This shift isn't about arrogance or indifference. It's about understanding that your mental and emotional stability is the foundation of your entire life. The moment you choose peace over validation is the moment you step into a different league of manhood. In the past, you may have tolerated things that chipped away at your confidence, mixed signals, inconsistency, disrespect, or emotional games, because you craved closeness more than you valued. Yourself, you gave second chances, third chances, and endless chances, not because she deserved them, but because you were afraid of losing her. You compromised your standards to keep her comfortable. You swallowed your needs to avoid conflict. You sacrificed your peace to maintain the connection. But growth forces a man to confront the uncomfortable truth. No connection is worth losing yourself over. No person's approval should be more important than your own self-respect. When this realization hits fully, you no longer cling to anyone who disrupts your inner calm. Your priorities shift. Instead of trying to win her attention, you protect your energy. Instead of overthinking what she might be doing or saying, you focus on what you are building. You become intentional about your environment, the people you allow in, the conversations you entertain, the situations you invest in. The version of you who once felt anxious or insecure now feels grounded. The version of you who once feared losing her now fears losing yourself again. This kind of inner transformation is impossible to fake, and it radiates in your behavior. A woman can sense when a man is no longer emotionally dependent on her reactions. She feels the shift when you don't get upset or clingy when she pulls away. She notices when you no longer chase after inconsistent energy. She recognizes that your silence isn't a tactic, it's self-protection. And this change hits differently because it's not aimed at her. It's aimed at preserving your own well-being. Suddenly, your peace becomes your shield and your boundaries become your armor. You no longer allow her or anyone else to disturb the stability you worked hard to build. The irony is that the moment you prioritize your peace, you become more attractive not because you're trying to impress her, but because calm, grounded men stand out in a world full of emotionally reactive people. You move differently now. You think before you respond. You walk away from chaos instead of engaging in it. You let people reveal their true selves instead of trying to control outcomes. That level of emotional mastery commands respect, even from those who never appreciated you before. When she realizes that her approval no longer holds power over you, it creates a shift in her mind. The comfort she once had knowing she could pull you in with a little attention disappears. The control she once held evaporates. She realizes you're not waiting for her anymore. You're not checking your phone for her messages. You're not losing sleep over her decisions. You've chosen yourself, and that choice is unshakable. This doesn't mean you're cold or closed off. It means you now understand that peace is a form of strength, not weakness. You value your emotional health more than temporary affection. You refuse to entertain situations that drain you. You've learned that a man who prioritizes his peace becomes a man who can build a powerful life, and a powerful life doesn't chase approval, it attracts respect. Ultimately, choosing peace is the moment you become untouchable. It's the moment she realizes that the man she once knew, the man who lived for her validation, is gone. And in his place stands a man who finally understands his worth. When you begin creating a life she wants to be part of again, it doesn't start with trying to impress her or win her back. It starts with a quiet decision, the decision to rebuild yourself, your mindset, and your future from the ground up. You stop waiting for her return and instead focus on becoming the kind of man who naturally attracts better opportunities, better connections, and better outcomes. This process isn't about making her jealous or proving something. It's about designing a life that feels meaningful to you, independent of who stays or leaves. And in doing so, you become a version of yourself she didn't expect, a version she eventually can't ignore. You begin with your lifestyle, you reorganize your priorities, build routines, strengthen discipline, and focus on becoming more capable, more confident, and more fulfilled. You start taking care of your body, working out consistently, eating better, sleeping well, not because she will see it, but because it makes you stronger. You develop habits that make you sharper and more resilient. Over time, your physical presence changes. Your energy shifts. You carry yourself like a man who knows where he's going, not like someone who's hoping she'll choose him again. Then comes your mindset. You stop living in the past and start investing in the future. You replace regret with learning, heartbreak with growth, and doubt with clarity. You start reading, thinking deeply, planning, and acting. You aim for more, expect more, and demand more from yourself. Slowly, you become a man with a vision, and women are drawn to men with vision. She may not be around to see every step of your evolution, but she will sense it the moment she comes back into your orbit. A man with purpose feels different. He walks differently, speaks differently, and chooses differently. Your social world expands too. Instead of isolating yourself or waiting for her attention, you reconnect with friends, family, and people who genuinely uplift you. You experience new things, explore new places, and build new connections. You stop relying on one person for emotional fulfillment. Suddenly, your life looks alive again, full of movement, growth, and possibility. And that's when she notices. Maybe through social media, maybe through mutual friends, or maybe simply through the energy she feels when she hears your voice again. But she realizes that your life is no longer paused on her decision. Financially, emotionally, and mentally, you start to level up. You work harder, become more focused, and take steps toward the goals you once postponed. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you believed. That momentum builds confidence, real confidence, not the fragile kind that depends on someone else's approval. And confidence is always felt, even before it's seen. By the time she finally crosses paths with your new life, it's unmistakable that you've upgraded. Not superficially, not temporarily, but fundamentally. And that's when a powerful shift happens in her mind. She remembers the man you used to be, the one she left, the one who doubted himself, the one who felt broken. But standing in front of her now is a man who outgrew that version, a man who doesn't need her but could choose her. A man who built something meaningful with or without her. That realization hits differently. It sparks curiosity, attraction, and often regret. But the most important part is this: you didn't build this new life for her, you built it for yourself. And that's exactly why it becomes the kind of life she wants to be part of again. Because women are drawn to men who are growing, grounded, and driven. Men who walk confidently toward their purpose. Men who live fully, not for someone, but for themselves. When you create that kind of life, you don't chase anyone. You don't wait. You don't beg. You simply rise. And in that rise, she realizes the truth. You're no longer the man she left. You're the man she now hopes to reconnect with, if you even want her to.